Welcome to the Topical Capacity Building component of the Planning module, Partners for Implementation of CDBG Program Activities and Preparing Written Agreements. As a reminder, the Topical Capacity Building component is intended to provide more details on one or more components only covered briefly in the live training session. In this session, we will learn about several types of partners for the implementation of CDBG activities and the implications for partnering with specific types of organizations. In this session, we will touch on sub-recipients, community-based development organizations, CDBOs, community development financial institutions, CDFIs, developers, and contractors. Then, we will learn more about the requirements for written agreements to be used with each type of partner that is discussed. HUD allocates CDBG funds to entitlement grantees and to states. The CDBG regulations allow entitlement grantees to partner with third-party organizations to implement CDBG activities. Entitlement grantees may also implement CDBG activities on their own. For states, the CDBG regulations specify that the state may only provide CDBG grants to units of general local government. States cannot implement CDBG activities directly. Units of general local government are subgrantees of the state that may then, in turn, partner with third-party organizations to implement CDBG activities. There are several different types of organizations that entitlement grantees and units of general local government may partner with to implement all or a portion of a given activity. This video introduces some of the different types of partners entitlement grantees and units of general local government can work with to implement CDBG activities. A sub-recipient is a public or private nonprofit agency, authority, or organization receiving CDBG funds from an entitlement grantee, unit of general local government, or another sub-recipient to undertake eligible activities. Examples include other departments of the entitlement grantee or unit of general local government like the Public Works, Code Enforcement, or Parks and Recreation Department. Other public agencies that serve the community as well as community-based nonprofit organizations. Entitlement grantees and units of general local government may select any public agency or nonprofit organization as a partner following their own local procedures. The regulations do not specify how sub-recipients must be chosen. In accordance with the regulations, states must develop their own procurement policies and procedures, and must also establish requirements for procurement policies and procedures for units of general local government based on full and open competition. The CDBG regulations do specify, however, the minimum content of the agreement to be used between entitlement grantees or units of general local government and sub-recipients. What makes this partnership unique is that the sub-recipient may be held to the same CDBG requirements as the grantee, based on the activity. Therefore, agreements with sub-recipients must specify the CDBG regulations applicable under the agreement. For example, certain National Environmental Policy Act requirements and processes are the responsibility of the entitlement or units of general local government. A community-based development organization, CBDO, is a for-profit or nonprofit organization formed to engage in community development activities in a specific service area within the community. For state grantees, the Housing and Community Development Act also refers to CBDOs as neighborhood-based development organizations. The CBDO's governing body consists of at least 51% low and moderate income residents of the service area or representatives of low and moderate income organizations in the service area. It is not an agency of the entitlement grantee or unit of general local government, and no more than 1/3 of the governing body consists of elected or appointed public officials or employees of the entitlement grantee or unit of general local government. CBDOs carry out one of three activities allowed in the statute: community economic development, neighborhood revitalization, or energy conservation. In contrast, an entity that supplies goods and services at an agreed-upon rate or price is considered a contractor. When a grantee or subrecipient hires a contractor, the contractor must be procured according to the procurement regulations. The process for selecting a CBDO depends on the nature of the contractual relationship. If the CBDO will act in the role of contractor, entitlement grantees and units of general local government follow their local procurement requirements that conform to the procurement regulations. If the CBDO will act in the role of a subrecipient, entitlement grantees and units of general local government would follow their local procedures for selecting subrecipients. The role of the CBDO determines the applicability of certain regulations. If the CBDO will be a subrecipient, the Uniform Administrative Requirements and Reversion of Assets requirements, for example, proceeds from land sales, would apply. If the CBDO is retained as a developer, the Uniform Administrative Requirements would not apply, and the entitlement grantee or unit of general local government must specify in the written agreement if the reversion of assets rules apply. A Community Development Financial Institution, CDFI, is a community-based lending institution serving an investment area or targeted underserved population, such as low-income people or places. A CDFI's primary purpose is to provide loans, development investments, and training to promote community development. Examples of CDFIs include community development banks and loan funds, and low-income credit unions. CDFIs must demonstrate that they maintain accountability to residents of their investment area or to their target population by providing ways for these groups to be represented on the CDFI's governing board or through other methods of representation. CDFIs may not be an agency or instrumentality of the federal, state, or local government, except Native American tribes. Under the CDBG regulations, CDFIs are not considered subrecipients or contractors. Therefore, entitlement grantees and units of general local government may select and partner with CDFIs according to their local procedures. However, a grantee may designate a CDFI as a subrecipient. There are a few special considerations for activities carried out by CDFIs. First, for a CDFI whose charter limits its investment area to a primarily residential area with 51% LMI persons, job creation or retention activities may be qualified as meeting the area benefit requirements. Scattered site housing activities may be considered to be a single structure for the purposes of applying the LMI Housing National Objective Criteria, and economic development activities may be exempt from the aggregate public benefit standards. Second, for any CDFI, regardless of its investment area, the job creation or retention national objective requirements may be met by aggregating the jobs created or retained by all businesses for which CDBG assistance was obligated during the program year. The CDBG regulations describe a developer as a private entity, either nonprofit or for-profit, that may receive CDBG funds to acquire and/or rehabilitate properties for residential purposes that will be used as rental housing or resold as home ownership housing. Entitlement grantees may select private, nonprofit, or for-profit developers according to their own local procedures, provided that the proposed activity costs are eligible and reasonable, and a written agreement is in place. Units of general local government must follow policies and procedures provided by the state grantee. Developers are not subject to the uniform administrative requirements like a subrecipient and are not procured like a contractor because they do not provide specific goods or services back to the entitlement grantee or unit of general local government. Instead, a developer has site control and handles all aspects of creating an affordable housing opportunity for a CDBG beneficiary. A contractor is a for-profit or nonprofit entity paid with CDBG funds in return for specific services, where payment is made to the contractor as compensation for the services. Entitlement grantees, as well as their subrecipients, must procure contractors in accordance with the procurement regulations. Units of general local government must follow policies and procedures provided by the state grantee. Retaining a contractor is appropriate when the project is a discrete activity that does not involve program management or administration. Activities served by contractors have a well-defined scope of work for physical or service-oriented activities and clear beginning and ending date. In review, entitlement grantees and units of general local government may partner with several different types of organizations to perform housing, community, and economic development activities and projects using CDBG funds. The characteristics of these organizations, the required selection process, and the rules that apply to the organization and the activity as a result of the type of organization selected will vary. The partner selection processes discussed in this video include procurement of contractors under the applicable regulations or a locally defined process. Locally defined processes vary widely. Some involve formal applications, while others involve limited applications and a more collaborative approach to defining the activity. Some locally defined processes are competitive, others are not. The policies and customs of the entitlement grantee, the types of activities being undertaken, and the availability of potential partners are all considerations when establishing a locally defined selection process. This chart shows when procurement applies to a selection process based on the type of partner. It also shows when selecting a specific type of partner causes the uniform administrative requirements to apply to the activity. HUD provides CDBG funds to entitlement grantees and to states. Entitlement grantees may then provide CDBG funds to support the community development work undertaken by sub-recipients, contractors, and developers. HUD also provides CDBG funds to states, who in turn provide CDBG funds to units of general local government that also may provide CDBG funds to support the work of sub-recipients, contractors, and developers. However, none of this funding is available until written agreements are executed between each of the parties where CDBG funds will flow. The CDBG regulations include a specific provision outlining the content of agreements between entitlement grantees and their subrecipients. These requirements may be found in the CDBG regulations. The requirements for pass-through entities, such as an entitlement grantee or unit of general local government providing funds to a subrecipient, must also be addressed in subrecipient agreements and may be found in the Uniform Administrative Requirements. States are required to enter into agreements with units of general local government. Then, units of general local government may enter into agreements with subrecipients. The rules governing subrecipient agreements between units of general local government and their subrecipients are prescribed in state codes, policies, and procedures, which may be defined and informed by the CDBG entitlement regulations. Written agreements between entitlement grantees and contractors or developers must incorporate at least all the provisions found in Appendix 2 of the Uniform Administrative Requirements. If the state has adopted the Uniform Administrative Requirements to govern its administrative systems for the CDBG program, written agreements between units of general local government and contractors or developers must incorporate at least all the provisions found in Appendix 2. Contract provisions for non-federal entity contracts under federal awards. If the state has not adopted the Uniform Administrative Requirements, written agreements between units of general local government and contractors or developers must include the provisions required by state law or policy. Partners for implementation of CDBG program activities and preparing written agreements. Thank you for watching the topical capacity building component of the planning module with a focus on the type of entities that the CDBG program partners with and how written agreements are prepared between grantees or units of general local government and each different type of partner. Please proceed to the reinforced component of this module for a brief quiz to test your knowledge.